was a pretty busy week for Texas Democrats in the Senate primary there. You had former Congressman Colin Allred drop out of that race to run for what is essentially his old seat in Congress. You have Congressman Jasmine Crockett, who jumped into the Senate primary. And then you had James Talarico, who's still sort of introducing himself to voters, go on Jubilee Media and do this big sit down with 20, quote unquote, undecided voters about four different, claims he has about politics. And, it was a key moment for him. And the formats there are hard. The people are not necessarily the most friendly. A lot of them are kind of ready to get in there and throw jabs. And Talarico didn't just survive this sit down, he thrived. And I think he gave this really good blueprint for how Democrats can effectively communicate ideas and plans to voters in a way that is reasonable and human and really resonates with them. And so, there's no shortage of great moments in this, hour and a half long interview. It was a long one, but I pulled a few that I think are definitely getting the most buzz in terms of being the strong moments and the standouts from this interview. And we're going to walk through them, but just time and again, he really proves that with various types of voters and different types of voters who care about different things, he always had a grounded, smart, logical, personal answer for their questions and was able to really win over a lot of these people. So I want to start with he did a sit down where a guy came up and started talking about welfare queens living off of the system and how can Democrats support that? And this was Talarico's response, and it was a great one. Let's take a look.
The biggest welfare queens in this country are the giant corporations that don't pay a penny in federal taxes. The biggest welfare queens are the CEOs who get a tax deduction for flying on a private jet. It's not hungry kids. It's not working parents who work multiple jobs to provide for their families. I agree with you that we need individual responsibility. And I don't want to create a culture of dependency. I want a hand up and not a handout. I believe that you don't give a man to fish, you teach a man to fish. But if you're going to take your friend out on a boat for the day to teach him how to fish, you want to make sure he had breakfast that morning. You want to make sure he's not sick because that allows him to learn how to fish. Again, I was a public school teacher, so I saw how when kids showed up hungry, they couldn't learn that day. Even my brightest students, even my hardest working students, couldn't succeed, couldn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they didn't have boots. That's what I'm trying to fix in this country. We don't want dependency. We want to reward hard work. And I think that should apply to those billionaires, not just working people.
And this is what good persuasion looks like. He's not attacking poor people. He's not blaming them for any of the problems in our society. He also doesn't mock conservatives here, though. He does a smart reframing of what smart help from the system looks like. And that a good, healthy society is one that gives people a foundation to pull themselves up and contribute to society and create that snowball effect where, because you've given them a springboard, even the most vulnerable people, that springboard is what is going to allow them to make everybody else's lives better and make the country's lives better and progress, through the middle class and live the American dream, as opposed to what we're doing right now, which is giving tax cuts to billionaires, as he mentioned in this, giving tax write-offs for private jets to billionaires and CEOs. That we've got people who are talking about becoming trillionaires for the first time ever, which and James Talarico in this interview or in past interviews has said there should be no such thing as trillionaires. That seems like a pretty reasonable thought for 99.999% of people. And so I think for him, he framed this in a way that was moral and not ideological, and it was brilliant. And so I think this pushback and this idea that this part of economic populism is something that resonates with people regardless of what end of the spectrum they're on. I don't think you could find any even uber MAGA Republican voter who's going to say, I think it's great that we have tax write-offs for private jets. Nobody thinks that unless you're a private jet owner. And so I think, by putting out those concrete things that are actually happening in the world, I think he kind of shows these voters like these are things that are actually happening, and we could be putting our support and our money behind things that can help far more people. And he talks about in this same interview or in this same section, he talked about healthcare and just made a really good case for why a public option in our healthcare system would be helpful for people. So let's take a look at what he had to say about that.
I'm for a public option. I'm for allowing anyone in the state of Texas, anyone in America, to sign up for Medicare, to be able to access high quality, low cost healthcare. I think when we do that, you're going to see folks who are in terrible healthcare plans flee and join this public option. It creates competition in the market. It creates choice. It creates opportunities for people to decide what's best for themselves and their families. So I am not satisfied with this healthcare system. Please do not misunderstand me. We need transformational change when it comes to healthcare in this country, because I believe healthcare is a human right, and it shouldn't depend on how much money you make or how much money your parents make. We all are entitled to high quality, low cost, affordable healthcare.
And I think this policy idea, I'm glad it's being brought up again. I think it kind of got shelved for too long. I think Democrats have let Republicans define healthcare debates for far too long. I think obviously we're seeing in the polling now that Democrats own healthcare again, in terms of in popularity, the popularity of the ACA right now, the fact that, the super majority of the country thinks, Donald Trump is doing a terrible job handling healthcare and thinks Democrats are the party of better healthcare. And I think for him to clearly call out what we have right now doesn't work, but also not scaring people and basically by saying a public option is great, because if someone is on a terrible plan and the public option is better, they're going to move to it. If the public option isn't better, then they won't. If it has bad coverage or it's too expensive or it's limited in terms of the types of providers you can go to, then people will keep what they have if it's better. It's so common sense, and I think it kind of defangs what Republicans have said for so long, which is, Democrats are going to kick you off of off of your health care, and you're going to be forced onto government health care. What he's saying is, let's have both options, and may the best one win. And may having more options actually drive competition that makes the system leaner, and it makes it a system that isn't taking advantage of people in the way it's taking advantage of them now. And he kind of talks about the different ways that the system takes advantage of everyday people like you and me throughout this interview. It's a common thread that he brings up, time and again. And he brought it up when he talks about money in politics quite a bit during this interview or during this sit down. And I want to bring something up that he talks about when he's talking about money in politics, but he's also talking about how that money in politics has influenced issues we care about, like gun violence. Let's take a look.
It's only a matter of time before there's another Uvalde shooting within Texas, and it's a matter of, I don't want to ban guns at all. I don't want to take away people's rights, but it's a matter of, when are we going to start putting these processes in place, again, background checks, again, raising the age limit, your mind isn't even fully developed at 18.
So I would say the biggest obstacle that's preventing us from making progress and saving lives is the influence of big money on this issue. The NRA has a stranglehold on too many politicians at the federal level, but also at the state and local level. And they use that big money to prevent all of us from passing things that most Texans want, that most Americans want. The reason we can't is because the NRA has bought too many politicians. It's why I am not taking a dime of corporate PAC money in this campaign. It's why I'm not taking money from the NRA. It's why I'm not taking money from AIPAC. I think the number of PACs that control politicians in this country is appalling.
And this messaging is not just messaging that is going to work on Democrats. This type of messaging works on Republicans as well, or at least it seems like it would, because it's just another common sense thing where if you asked an everyday American, they're not going to say, boy, I wish there was more money in politics. Nobody feels that way. And we've watched as these elections get, $10 million elections became $100 million elections, which have become billion-dollar elections. And that's not because individuals are contributing so much money to them. There are limits to what we can donate to a political campaign. But Super PACs have absolutely no limit. If they want to put, $100 million into a state Supreme Court race in Pennsylvania, they can do it because there are no laws preventing them from doing it because the Supreme Court gutted Citizens United. And so I think Republicans and Democrats alike would all like to see money out of politics. And I think so. I think for him, he's clearly doing things that are not just going to appeal to Democrats. And I think what's so great about, what at least I've seen from Talarico thus far is he's a little hard to politically label, which is a great thing. I think people don't want a politician that they can put in a box so easily. And I think for him, he's got some ideas that are very pragmatic and centrist. He's got some ideas that are more progressive, but they all sound really common sense in the way he talks about them. And I think right now, there is this huge opportunity to win back all of these voters that Democrats have lost over, especially in 2024, but in previous elections as well, because this messaging works for Democrats. It works for Republicans as well, especially as voters watch Trump and his allies openly enrich themselves in a way we have never seen that is so blatant and brazen and corrupt and being done with zero accountability. I think someone talking about changing the political system to something where it's not just whoever throws the most money into the race wins. I think all Americans would like to see more of that. For me, there is one more absolutely killer moment in this interview, and it is when he talks about immigration and where so many Democrats are afraid to go there and afraid to talk about immigration because they're afraid they're gonna say the wrong thing or they're too afraid to speak out about what Democrats have done wrong on immigration as well. Talarico wasn't. Let's take a look.
I will say what I think not enough Democrats have been willing to say. Joe Biden failed us on our southern border. I remember talking to my colleagues in the Texas legislature who represent border communities. They told me about the utter chaos on the border. And that failure by Joe Biden paved the way for Donald Trump to come in with masked men in unmarked vehicles, secret police, tearing parents from their children, kidnapping people off the street. I think both parties have failed us on this issue. I think we all should come together and finally pass comprehensive immigration reform, more immigration judges, more border patrol, modernize our ports of entry where most of the fentanyl gets in, reform our asylum system, relieve the visa backlog. We should finally fix this problem instead of grandstanding on it.
And what is so great about this is that he gave a plan and actual concrete proposals after he said, I want to fix our immigration system. It wasn't empty slogans. He wasn't dodging anything. He wasn't pretending everything was fine. He said, first of all, called out Joe Biden for not doing a good job handling immigration during his presidency, and then said, I want to fix immigration. I want to work with Republicans, and I want to do it doing these things. And I think right now that is something sometimes Democrats are missing are how do we go another step lower or another layer deeper and actually say we believe in this, but we want to accomplish it by doing this, this, and this. And that's exactly what Talarico does there, saying, I want more border patrol agents. I want to modernize ports of entry. Those are things that are actually concrete. And I think that is how you win back voters in 2026 and 2028. And I think whether Democrats agree with every single policy position of Talarico's or not, the method matters, and the method worked here. And he's not yelling louder. He's not making this campaign about himself. He's listening. He shows that he's caring, and he's offering real solutions. And if Democrats are serious about rebuilding trust with voters and dominating the elections in 2026 and 28, they should be watching this interview very closely. That's it for me today. If you liked what you saw in this video, throw a like on it. Follow the Demwins Media YouTube channel. Follow me at buildingthebench.substack.com, and we will keep bringing you the news as you need to see it. Thanks for watching.